There's a report circulating that Anthropic is facing a compute shortage significant enough to affect product access. And I want to be direct with you. This claim is unverified at this point. We don't have independent confirmation, and Anthropic hasn't made an official public statement about it that I can point to. But the signal itself is worth paying attention to because if it's real, it changes how you might plan around availability. Let me lay out what we're hearing and what remains unclear. The basic report is that Anthropic's compute capacity has become tight enough that it's becoming a product constraint. That's different from normal scaling friction. It means access itself, not just speed or cost, could be limited. But here's what we don't know yet. The specifics of which products or API tiers are actually affected, whether this is a temporary crunch or a longer structural issue, and when or if Anthropic has directly addressed this publicly. To understand why this matters, you need to know the context of what existed before. Anthropic has been running its Claude API with fairly open access for qualified customers. If you had an API key and quota, you could generally call it. There were rate limits, sure, and enterprise customers have different terms, but the model wasn't, you might not be able to access this because we've run out of compute. That would be new. Why does this matter if it's true? First, from a practical standpoint, if compute is genuinely constrained, it affects how you architect applications that depend on Claude. You can't just assume your inference jobs will complete on schedule. You might need fallback routes to other models, or you need to batch requests differently, or you need to negotiate dedicated capacity through enterprise channels. That's a real operational shift. Second, it signals something about the current state of frontier AI deployment. The models are expensive to run, training is expensive, but inference at scale is also genuinely hard to provision. You're not just talking about GPU memory, you're talking about consistent, reliable throughput across thousands of concurrent requests. If Anthropic is bumping into that ceiling, it's worth knowing because other labs probably are too. Third, if access is genuinely constrained, it affects your vendor strategy. If you're building something that needs Claude specifically, you need to know whether that's a reliable dependency or whether you should be dual pathing to other providers. Let me give you a concrete builder scenario. Say you're building an internal search and summarization system that processes documents through Claude's API. You're expecting to run maybe 50,000 tokens a day of inference. If compute constraints are real and unannounced, you might submit that workload and suddenly hit queue times or access denials you didn't expect. Your fallback is either to reduce usage, to negotiate enterprise access with higher guarantees, or to test a multi-model approach where lighter tasks go to a smaller or open model and only complex reasoning goes to Claude. That architecture decision changes if the constraint is real. From a workflow perspective, this also affects how you plan releases. If you're building a product feature that depends on Claude API availability, you can't just assume linear scaling. You might need to implement queue management on your side, or design the feature to degrade gracefully if inference is delayed. That's not catastrophic. It's just a real constraint you have to design around instead of a theoretical one. Now, the honest limitations here, we don't know if this is actually happening, we don't know the scope, and we don't know the timeline. It's possible this is a temporary situation tied to a specific event, high demand around a new Claude release or a data center issue or a particular customer surge. It's also possible it's structural and longer term. Without official clarity from Anthropic, you're planning in the dark. There are also questions about what this means for different customer tiers. If enterprise customers get priority access during a crunch, that's one thing. If it affects everyone equally, that's different. We don't have that answer either. What should you do with this? First, if you're not already monitoring your Claude API usage and latency, start now. Get a baseline. Know what your actual consumption looks like and whether you're seeing any unusual delays or access issues. Second, if Claude is critical to something you're shipping, consider whether you want to build in multi-model support now, before, or if any crunch becomes acute. Not because I'm telling you Claude is definitely constrained, but because that's defensible architecture regardless.